Right, so today we're going to be making sada. Sada is a Indian-inspired flatbread. Here I have some sifted flour, 4 cups. Sifting helps to remove all the lumps in the flour, giving you a much more even end product. So to that, I'm going to be adding some baking powder. Baking powder helps with the overall texture of the sada. It gives it that light and soft texture. Next, we're going to be adding some regular table salt. This helps to enhance all the flavors in the sada, as well as to balance the sweetness from the brown sugar. So I prefer brown sugar over white sugar, as the white sugar goes through a bleaching process, which removes a lot of the flavor characteristics in sugar. So for that, I prefer to use the brown. And besides adding sweetness to the sada, the natural yeast in the flour will feed on the sugar, which will in turn help to leaven the sada. Last ingredient going in is regular pipe-borne water. This is at room temperature. Right, so the water hydrates the flour. The amount of water you would add is usually based on the product you're making. Here I'm looking for a nice soft, silky, pliable ball of dough. So what's happening here while I'm kneading is that the protein in the flour feeds on the natural sugars within the flour, as well as the brown sugar, and the baking powder helps to leaven the dough, giving you that light, soft texture. Think of protein and flour as individual strands weaving themselves together to form a nice ball of dough. The protein in the flour helps to give the end product its structure and also allow the water to latch on to the protein to help hydrate the flour. So I'm just going to continue to mix here, and again, I'm looking for a nice, soft, pliable dough. I'll probably mix this, go ahead and knead this for about 10 to 15 minutes. Right, so here we are at like the halfway point of kneading. So you can see all the flour has binded. It's well hydrated. I think it's a little too hydrated. So if that happens, you just simply take a little extra flour and just dust it on and just knead it. No worries at all. Here in TNT, we typically eat sada as a breakfast option with scrambled eggs, stewed meat, tomato choka, and sada is also an excellent substitute for pita bread. So I'm just going to continue to knead for about 5 minutes or so again. Right, so here you see the sada coming in nicely. So I'm going to just shift all these things here and start to work it on the counter. Now feel free to stay in the bowl if you're not comfortable coming on the counter, but I prefer to move it to the counter once it reaches like 3/4 way there, halfway there. So here I'm just working the protein strands in the flour, or kneading it. Just gonna continue to do so until the ball starts to look smooth. It's very well hydrated, and you can see that the dough isn't sticking to the counter. That tells me it's not too wet. But you could also see that you're not really seeing like any flour in it, or it's not too hard, so that tells me it's well hydrated. Just gonna continue to knead it for like a few more minutes. I like to use 10 to 15 minutes as my guide, but I mean at the end of the day, you're really watching the dough and using that as a guide too. So all I'm doing here with my 2 hands, I'm just raising it up and kneading it in, and my left hand I'm just turning it. Turn. So I'm rotating the ball of dough to get a nice even mix, even knead. If you want, you could do this in a mixer, but I'm practically just doing exactly what a mixer is doing with my 2 hands. So you can see already, see how it's smoothing up? A lot smoother. Not dry at all. When I press into it, it's very light and spongy. I'm probably about 90% there. Once we finish knead it, we're just going to add it into a lightly greased bowl cover it with a damp cloth or cling wrap, and let it rest for an hour. What resting does is, so anytime you're working protein and flour, meat, you always want to let it rest. You want to let the protein relax, settle down, open up their pores, become workable again. So you never want to just go straight from kneading it to rolling it out to putting it on a tower. You always want to break up the stages, put some time between each stage to allow the protein and the flour to relax and become workable again. So I'm just going to knead this again for a minute, and then I'm going to add it to a grease bowl, cover with a damp cloth or cling wrap, and let it rest for an hour. Bread could probably pick up the difference in texture. See how smooth it is? It's not perfectly smooth. The reason for that is because I am going to work this one more time after the hour. After the hour, I have to divide it in 4, round or shape or form each quarter into a ball, which means I'm actually going to be kneading it again. And every time you work the dough, you are kneading the dough essentially. So I prefer to stop at like 95%, but you can see how nice and smooth it is, nice and spongy, light. I'm going to stop here, let it rest for an hour, and then come back. Right, so our sada has rested for an hour. So I'm going to uncover it, remove it from the bowl, place it on my cutting board and divide it into 4 even balls. Doesn't have to be exact. Once divided, I'm just going to use my 2 hands to shape it into a nice, smooth, round ball. You don't want to overwork it. Just enough to get it into your nice round ball. After this, I'm gonna cover it for about 20 to 30 minutes. Allow the dough to rest before we roll out and take it to the tower. Right, so the sada has been resting for 30 minutes now, so before I roll it out, I'm gonna turn on my burner on high and place the tower over it to heat up. You want your tower to get very hot. Right, so here we have 1 ball of sada. This is now ready to roll out. How do I know it's ready to roll out? You can just simply press down, and once the indentation remains, you know that the protein in the flour is relaxed. It's ready to be worked again. Nice soft ball of dough. So to start, I'm going to pick it up, place it in my flour to give it a nice liberal dusting. This is to ensure the sada doesn't stick to the counter. Pull my bowl to the side, take some of the flour, dust my rolling pin, take some of the flour as well, dust my hands, make sure I get everything nice and dusted. So here you want to try and keep your ball of dough as round as possible. Always ensuring to keep some flour below the dough so that it doesn't stick to your counter. So you see I'm just using my 2 hands to spread the dough into a round shape before I start to roll it out with my rolling pin. When using the rolling pin, you want to let the rolling pin do the work. Just take your time, roll it out. Don't apply too much force to the rolling pin. Just let the rolling pin do all the work. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to roll it up and down. Keep doing that until I've reached my desired length. You're looking for about anywhere between 10 to 12 inches. Then rotate. Same thing again. Let the rolling pin do all the work. Lift, rotate. ensuring to try and keep it as round as possible. No big deal if this is your first time and you get a little oblong looking shape, because at the end of the day, practice makes perfect. So you just continue to rotate and roll. From here, once your tower is nice and hot, again, you want to get it as hot as possible. You just go directly straight from your counter to your tower. Right, so as you can see, the tower is smoking. That tells me this tower is ready to go, because you want your tower screaming hot as possible. Just give it a light shake to the tower. Here, what you want to do too, if you could, is try to press it down and keep the round shape. A good trick is to try and just hold it in place for a couple seconds. Right, so you see the sada is already turned brown on that side. So just quickly flipped over. What I'm going to do now is once the second side starts to turn brown, I'm going to pull my tower slightly off of the open flame to expose the flame and transfer part of the sada over the flame or directly over the flame to give it that nice burnt look and to add that nice burnt flavor that sada is known for. Right, so I'm just going to hold the handle of the tower, pull it slightly off the flame to expose the flame, and just transfer my sada directly over the flame. Right, so you see here, sour is perfectly swollen. It has a hole at the top, which is why, I don't know if the camera picking up the little extra steam coming out, but ideally, this is what you're looking for. But as I said, if you now start, it's no big deal if your sada doesn't swell. I mean, this is something, you get better with practice. See the nice distinct burn marks. So this sada is finished. Our sada is finished. One quick note, once you come off the tower, you want to let the sada rest for like 5 to 10 minutes. That is to allow the proteins in the flour to relax, and then you can enjoy.